Welcome. My name is Opubo Benewo. As with every multitask and multi-activity operations, as is the case with subsistence farming, there are the operations layer and the management layer, each layer with its demands and oversights. So, the subsistence farmer is saddled with not just performing the farming of the food crops, but also must manage the operations as becomes incumbent after all the crop farmings have been concluded and awaits harvesting. The operations of the farming necessarily comprises of the activities regarding ensuring that each crop produces bountiful harvest, the biofertilizers production continues uninterrupted, the water is delivered to the farm without interruption, the power generation is consistent, and the farm is weeded as needed to keep free of weeds. Managing these concerns of the farming operations requires the decomposition of the functions into tasks and possibly the tasks into subtasks, and then constructing in the inverse direction, first sub-processes from the activities and then processes from the sub-processes, and finally a performance flow chart of the farming process. In synopsis then, this episode entitled Managing the Subsistence Farming Routine offers structured guide, albeit broad brush, given the many differences and nuances between farming to the managing of subsistence farms operations, considerations of the decomposition of the functions into tasks, general approach to integrating the tasks into sub-processes, and the vertical integration of the sub-processes into farming process for developing the performance flowcharts. The driver rationale guiding managing the subsistence farming routine is the need to not miss performing any task that might impact the productivity of the farm, but identifying all the activities, organizing the overlaying tasks into an organic whole such that the performance of the tasks effectively ensure stable, uninterrupted operating of the farm. A best approach to tackling this issue is to first identify and list all the moving parts of each function. Then determine which of these moving parts constitute a degree of failure, and list each degree of freedom of failure as a task of observation of frequency to be determined by an assigned weighting. Next, develop a dependency tree that shows the flow of the impact of each degree of failure on the dependent task. The dependency trees are ultimately to be embedded in other trees as needed until the absolute minimum count of roots obtained, where the roots become the primary degree of the point of freedom of failure. As the branches of the tree, sub-processes are developed with the closed loop in the branches as sub-processes. These sub-processes are then integrated into larger and larger ones until nothing larger could be produced by integration. One thing would stand out of this task: the roots continue to remain separate from the process, and that is fine because the roots, as will become obvious, defines the entry point into the process or processes if more than one process is developed. With the tasks having now been integrated into an interactive organic whole, the flow chart is developed. The start symbols actually holds the root of the process developed, because as observed earlier, the root is the entry point into the process. The rest of the process components are then added into the chart, and if done well, then the observation tasks that require frequent inspection should show several return to that node ordering inspection. And the flowchart should end at the end of the day at whatever work hours was chosen. Accordingly, the starting point should also be time-based, so the daily routine starts at the right time and then ends also at the end of day. Once fully developed, the flow chart may be decomposed into a Gantt chart for the purposes of time management. By this chart, the vertical will be the task performance start time during the day, and the horizontal will be the task performance duration. The chart essentially guides the movement of the farmer in performing the various daily tasks without forgetting any task. Of course, the chart is expected to appear very crowded at initial development, but that is all right, as repeated viewing for guidance very quickly creates familiarity with the contents and should become not so crowded in time. For simplicity, the chart may be put into a picture frame and hung on a wall. Alternatively, the chart may be scanned and stored in a computer and be viewed during the day while work is ongoing. The farmer may then simply check the chart and move on to perform the currently due performed tasks and repeat through the day. However, for efficiency and little respite, the farmer may also adopt the process as constructed as being descriptive of the farm operations, and then the performance flow chart is adopted for implementing PLC programming for managing the operations in terms of alert issuance on the human-machine interface, available for the farmer to view the whole farm tasks progression at any time and be alerted of specific points of failure when such occurs. The advantage with the use of management process controller is that certain visits to node of degrees of failure may be omitted, and so let the controller issue alert only when there is an impending failure. With the automation controller to monitor the equipment, the farmer could focus on the daily chores of biofertilizing soils, watering the soil, adjusting the light irradiation, and checking on the plant's performance until an alert forces a focus on attendant issue. Effectively, as the tasks are performed every day, the observations about the state of each plant, the soil state, watering impact, and everything deemed important is documented and compiled as performance record. From the perspective of managing the farm, the development of the farm process is a critical step, and the further step in the context of managing is the analysis of observations and the guidance of performance based on the results of the analysis of the performance records relative to the standards of expectations as noted in the discussion of the planting processes. The contents of these performance records are effectively analyzed and contrasted with the standards of expectations. Deviations from these standards are then considered for corrective or remedial actions the following day unless a crisis situation. These methods almost have a structure akin to adaptive control theory adapted for management. As a management construct, the process is more obvious when the operations involves more than one person. In that situation, then, the separation between operations and management becomes more clear, as one person schedules the tasks and assigns farmhands to the various tasks, receives the observation documentation, performs the analysis, and decides on, as well as directs, corrective or remedial actions to guide the evolution of the plant's growth towards the preferred end goal. Here then the separation is obvious. The farmhands work, the manager oversees the results of the evolution of the farm towards harvest. The conclusion that could be drawn here at this time is that structured farming of subsistence farm and even regular industrial farms can be organized to provide more efficient performance of the farming tasks when integrated into an organic set of tasks. Further, the farming task on being organized into a whole and integrated for performance sequences, can be implemented onto a daily routine and so performed daily almost mechanically and with special actions taken when the need arises. That will certainly allow the farm hands to rapidly go down the learning curve of the farming. Besides, the farming process also developed from the organizing and integration of the task can also be implemented into an automation control system for consistent routine monitoring such that time management would be of utmost efficiency. And it is a wrap. On that note, I say to you, thank you so much for having come to listen to this observation about efforts aimed at alleviating world hunger through subsistence farming by both urban dweller farmers and emerging countries' small farms farmers. You are truly appreciated, and if you would like to get privileged viewer, reader information, access podcasts of various specialized contents, or access even vertical integrated contents, then I implore you to join my supporter club and enjoy that privileged status. Moreover, while still here, do please take a moment and subscribe to the channel as to be informed of the publication of every new episode as soon as it is released. Thank you. Bye till next episode.